Please welcome to the stage 2023 Bravo Hemispheric Leader of the Year, General Laura J. Richardson, U.S. Southern Command, along with Susan Segal, President and CEO of the Americas Society Council of the Americas, who will engage in a Bravo leadership conversation to discuss the role of the U.S. Southern Command as a critical player for promoting security and stability in the Americas.
Good morning. So for me, the opportunity to interview General Richardson is actually the highlight of my day. So thank you very, very much. It is truly a privilege. General Richardson, as you all know, is the head of Southern Command here in Florida. She is the first woman who is the head of Southern Command. She is only the second four-star general in the history of the Army, as I understand it. She has done amazing things like fly helicopters in war zones, done things that probably most of us don't have the nerve to do and certainly don't have the opportunity to do. And she has done it with grace, and she has also, in my opinion, brought a whole new dimension of diplomacy and active involvement in Latin America. I think she's one of the greatest assets that we have today. So with that, I don't want to spend too much time except to say that she will be honored this evening as Leader of the Year, and we're so excited about that. So I'd really... You can read her bio, and so I don't want to waste a lot of time going through it. I really want to start, if it's okay with you, on a little bit of a personal note. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you, and why did you make this decision to go down the path that you did and enter the Army?
Well, I think in terms of where my parents and their background is from the Depression era. Very patriotic parents, and I started off as an athlete. My folks started, all four of us kids, I'm the oldest of four, and started us off as athletes at a very young age to keep us busy, out of trouble, and occupied, so between school and sports and those kinds of things. And so it was a natural way to continue that after high school and college. I swam all the way up through college, and then the military seemed to be a really nice fit. And so my folks got me started in ROTC in college, and with the experience that I already had in terms of aviation and flying, that I was able to do as a single engine pilot, again to keep busy with certain things. It segued nicely into applying for the aviation branch and commissioned into the United States Army as in aviation to go to flight school. And so, quite honestly, I think just the evolution of just our military and the opportunities that our military offers, and even today, so much more so. I really can't say enough. I have been challenged by the Army. I have gotten to do things that I just have to pinch myself being in the service that I would never get to do in any other profession. And so I'd just like to give a shout out in terms of the opportunities. I couldn't have made up my career. If I had a chance to just write everything out of what a perfect career would be, I couldn't have done as well as what I had the opportunity to do in the service today. So a plug out for our recruiting efforts for the United States military, because it's just really been tremendous. Again, I have to pinch myself in some of the things. I'm sitting here with you, Susan, today, talking about this great hemisphere. And again, you just got to pinch yourself on some of the things that you're able to do and be a part of.
That's so interesting, because people don't often hear this about the military, but I think some of the most impressive people that I've met dealing with America Latina come from the military and Southern Command.
Yeah.
So being a woman, we always had to juggle being married, having children. I would go away for 3 days and, think, oh my God, I'm going to be away from my children for 3 days. But you've managed to juggle this amazing career with a husband, with children, and you were deployed. How did you manage all of this? And
Well,
juggle all of this?
another plug for the service. So I've been in the service for 37 years. So, my daughter is in her mid-30s. And so 30 years ago when we were coming up, my husband was also in the Army. So a plug again for you can be in the service, both of you. You can have a family in the military and be successful, both of you. And so I think that's another thing that is not another plus that folks don't know about our military today. But really, in order, again, I said I was in the service for 37 years, but 30 years ago, these programs existed. And so the ability to be able to juggle that, there were the services available that we could manage to both stay in the military. My husband retired as a 3-star general in the Army a year ago. And so, again, just being role models for folks out there that dual military couples is what we talk about in the military, but that's a percentage of our services. And so I think it's just being able to have those available and certainly be able to have folks be able to have careers in the service. And so really proud of that fact because a lot of people don't know that.
That's great. So you are a role model. You're a leader, you're a role model, and you inspire a lot of young women and men to achieve great things. Can you tell us a little bit about your career path? So you started in flight school, you joined the Army, you were in the ROTC. Tell us, how did you get from there to here?
So I think because of the being able to do different things in order to keep our family together. And again, the service has, all the services have programs that keep the military folks together, because once an investment is made, it's important to keep that investment, not to allow the investment to walk out the door only to have to invest in new folks, because that takes time to build, once you've created an investment. And certainly if you're talking about a pilot, it's into flight school and the training and those sorts of things. So there's a big investment that the service has made, and so it behooves the services to keep that investment. And so how do you do that? You've got to be able to meet the needs. And so we were able to do that over a period of time. But we didn't ask for things. My husband was also a helicopter pilot, so that made it kind of easy. We didn't fly the same kind of aircraft because he flew an attack type helicopter, at which time when I came in the service, women weren't able to fly attack helicopters. And so I went the transport route. So I flew a UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter where we had troops inside. He flew an Apache helicopter. But we asked for places that would not get us separated, and there was a military family couple, Army married couples program that kept us together. And so again, it was possible, and it wasn't too hard to do. We did deploy to combat at the same time in 2003, and so, but the military always, they have our folks that have kids, dual military couples, single parents, that they have a plan in place. Because you got to be able to do your job, and your job, part of that includes being able to be ready and be able to deploy if your nation needs you to deploy. And you have to be ready to do that. And so we had a plan in place, and we were able to execute that plan when we both deployed to Iraq at the same time. But our daughter today, resilient, I call her military brat. Our kids that have moved all over the world, have friends all over the world. They're so resilient, and they wouldn't trade anything that they've gone through for a different life or a different upbringing, because today I will tell you that it teaches them the bumps in the road with life. They learn that a little bit more early on, but it makes them even that much more resilient.
And have they kept those friends? I bet they have.
Yeah.
In today's world.
Yeah, absolutely. She still has all her friends that she grew up with in all the different places.
That's great. So you're the commander, Southern Command. Your responsibility encompasses 31 nations, from Central America all the way to Tierra del Fuego, across to the Caribbean, across to the Pacific. Can you elaborate for the audience a little bit about, your mission, your role, your priorities in that role?
So, great question. And in terms of what you expect of a military, is all the things that we do. We're ready. We have contingency plans. We have. I'm in charge of whenever any of our U.S. military are in this region, I am responsible for them. And we conduct exercises. We conduct conferences. We conduct all kinds of engagement, human rights, all based in human rights, the rule of law, the professionalization of militaries. And we spend a lot of time doing that. We just celebrated last year our Human Rights Initiative in United States Southern Command, and had ministers of defense, chiefs of defense, and others that came from all the countries to celebrate that, but not just celebrate it, it's also talk about the current challenges and the gray zone of what makes human rights so important, and how you deal with vignettes and situations that are presented to our young folks in the military today, with elections and riots and protests and those sorts of things, and honoring your Constitution versus a person. Very, very important discussions that are very, very relevant and have been relevant for the last 25 years and continue to be. And so I would say that, a lot of folks feel or think of the military as hard power, military equipment, military operations, and things like that. Of course, if needed, that is what it is. But for this hemisphere, it's an honor to be able to use a lot of the soft power initiatives, humanitarian assistance, disaster response, training, all of those kinds of challenges. How do you help with climate change? You think, what does the military have to do with climate change? But if you think about the drought corridor that's in this hemisphere, 1,000-mile drought corridor, you think of food insecurity, healthcare, hard to get healthcare, all the things that are contributing to irregular migration, as we know, which is at unprecedented historical numbers right now. So how do we counter against that? How do we bring all of folks like you together? How do we work to help the partner nations tackle those things? These challenges are overwhelming for them, but they're not overwhelming for us to be able to figure out solutions to these really complex problems to help partner nations deal with them.
Had you worked with Latin America before?
I had not.
And so what's the most interesting thing, or what has surprised you the most in your work with the continent?
Well, I think what I try to do, Susan, is really to understand the countries, not just talk about the cultural ties, the family ties, the connections of food, culture, family. We have fought in wars alongside Korea and Colombia, World War II, the Korean War. We have history that goes back decades with all of these countries. We have the diaspora right here of the entire hemisphere in Miami. And so I think just learning, I'm pleasantly surprised about so many things. I was just saying earlier this morning that I was in Peru about 3 weeks ago, and I didn't realize how Peruvians were such foodies, And so when you learn, I'm very proud of of their culture and their food, and very, very proud of that. So I was asked if I had tried the ceviche, and then there was a whole list of like 30 other things I had to try while I was there in the country. But it's those kinds of things that help you understand how proud of the culture and the history that our countries are, partner nations in this region. And so it's my honor to be able to do that and just be so respectful of their culture and their history.
Thank you. So as we speak, China seems to be entertaining several countries on their Belt and Road Initiative with good allies of ours and not so good allies of ours. Could you give us your perspective? And we're always talking about China in Latin America and how they're trying to invest in North America and South America, frankly. They're trying to invest in Mexico and use that as a platform to get into the United States. They're investing in South America, bringing currency, and in a place like Argentina when there is none. And they're in a sense trying to, in their own quiet way, disrupt what we would consider to be our influence in the hemisphere. Can you give us your perspective on that?
Well,
Please.
Thank you. The 22 of 31 countries have signed on to the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. China is hosting their third annual forum for the Belt and Road Initiative this week in China. 130 countries from across the globe are attending that. And I talk about I view it as the instruments of national power for the Chinese are brought forward in the Belt and Road Initiative under the guise or disguise of investment for countries. And I think that we have to be concerned about that because of the what I look at from a military perspective is the unprecedented buildup of military power in China, mainland China, conventional and nuclear military power. And the investment in this region is in all the critical infrastructure and deep water ports, 5G telecommunications, safe city, smart city technology, space. Again, I go 22 of 31 countries are already signatories of the Belt and Road Initiative. 4 additional countries have PRC projects in the region. I think that eyes wide open, our countries have seen to where with cost overruns, design flaws, erosion, for example, on dams and things like that have created more problems for a country than fixing. The debt trap of loans, not investing in the country in terms of bringing your own workers to do the labor for U.S. businesses and Western businesses that have democratic values. You come to a country and you hire host nation workers. You hire the people. The Chinese don't do that with the Belt and Road Initiative projects. And these projects are in the billions of dollars. It's nothing like we've ever seen before. And so I worry about the dual use nature of these projects. State-owned enterprises that conduct the infrastructure projects that are controlled by the government, and concerned that they can be flipped to be used for military application at some point. Again, because it's the critical infrastructure. And so if you're there to invest, great. If you're there to be part of team democracy, great. But if you're not, then what are you there to do? And what kind of investment, or really is it extraction that's taking place?
Absolutely. You look at a place like Chile, they're very interested around the Large Telescope because it's gathering so much data. And that's a real danger to the world, frankly.
Right.
So another big global threat that we talked about a little bit this morning is cyber. And Latin America is probably not paid as much attention as other areas of the world to cyber threats. Can you give us your view on this challenge, probably the biggest going forward?
Yeah, thank you for that. And in terms of cyber, that's everybody's concern. We've seen the cyber attacks, we've seen the ransomware attacks, the hacktivist attacks that have taken place. In large part to a lot of the government networks impacting financial institutions, healthcare institutions, the stealing of personal information, proprietary information from countries. And so we've seen it in different places over periods of time across Central America, South America. And so how do we assist partner nations in order to harden their networks? And certainly and raise the level of technology understanding for leaders in the region, I think is very important. We talk about that often in the United States, about our own critical infrastructure and being able to protect against that. And so with technology, and the protection of information, even that much more important. But in terms of the cyber and how do we defend and defend forward, but then also protect is very important. I would say it's not easy. That's another complex challenge with cyber. And so the solutions have to be relevant, and they have to be at the speed of relevance for countries. And it can't be, they have suffered these several attacks. Team USA can always help, but we have to be, asked by our partner nations. These are sovereign countries. They've got to ask for the assistance. But if they do, we're able to help. And we've had a couple countries that have asked for that assistance. And certainly with Southcom and our efforts, raising just the technology level and subject matter exchanges to help our cyber professionals that are in our partner nation militaries have those tools that they're able to, when you just talk about cyber hygiene and the very simple things that we all have to do for the companies you work for and the military I work for, there's individual responsibility that we all take. I have to sign an agreement that I'm going to do my part on our network and not make our network vulnerable by going to certain sites or things like that. Phones, smartwatches, taking them into, you can't take them into classified sessions, right? Because of so they're very simple, basic hygiene things that we have to do. And then so how good are we at doing the individual level all the way up to the operational and strategic level with protection against cyber threats?
How do you communicate, General Richardson, to a country generally that we're available to help? And does that extend, for example, into some of their key private sector companies that may be attacked that aren't government to government but have an impact on that country?
Well, certainly our Department of Homeland Security and the organization called CISA within DHS, but predominantly on the side that I work with the countries requesting assistance for their government networks, and certainly the State Department can work for the private sector and things like that, the exchanges and the help with that. But again, I think what's special about Southcom, I think what's special about, Council of the Americas, being able to put out a problem set there and then working together on how we're going to counter it. Council of the Americas has a convening power. Southcom has that ability to do that too with our militaries and partner nations, security forces. And so bringing forward, one, that there's a problem, and then two, how are we going to solve it together? But together we can do that.
So another big issue is climate change. We're trying to pack all the issues in a half an hour. But another big challenge is climate change. What are the effects you're seeing in our region, and how are we working with the region to solve or at least alleviate part of the problem?
Right, so climate change is huge, huge impacts. Storms are getting more severe, the drought corridor that I already mentioned. In some countries are dealing with the El Nino impacts. Either in some cases you might get floods or you might get the drought, or in some cases you might get both. And so how do we help with we have a climate adaptation plan that's come out from the Department of Defense about 1.5 years ago. And we have a couple initiatives within the Department of Defense. And then partnering with USAID, for example. I went to Colombia when the NASA administrator visited Colombia. And then there's an initiative that NASA and USAID have together called SEVERE, a project where you can take space and identify disease in crops and moisture in soil, what's preventing crops from growing, and those sorts of things. And one, be able to identify a problem, and then through those initiatives, be able to counter it. On the military side of the house, right? Everybody expects the military to be ready to respond to disasters and help countries, and in some cases, you'll have countries request of the U.S. Embassy for assistance. And so what you gotta help militaries and public security forces is not to become victims themselves, right? So how do you train in extreme storms and extreme weather? How do you harden your installations to be able to withstand the power grid going out? What's the backup plan? Where are the warehouses that already have those first types of things that you need to respond and then do recovery efforts? What about the 911 call centers? What about operation centers? And so we have put and worked with our countries to put all of these things in place. Are they where they need to be? No. We got to keep doing it and keep building that. But that effort to do that, to counter those things, I was talking earlier with someone from Chile, the once in 1,000-year fires that took place the entire month of February earlier this year. We weren't asked for assistance by the government, by USAID, right? We're always working, the military works in support of a lead federal agency. But thinking in Southcom, which is what my team does, is okay, we haven't been asked to provide assistance, but how are we going to help our partners? And what we did was we were able to share the imagery where the fires were spreading, because they were lacking the imagery of being able to see and predict and be able to stage and then counter, because there are things that you can do if you know based on where the fire is and how the winds are and all those kinds of things. Be able to counter that. And then, so we shared over 250 products, imagery products. Amazing. And then also hoses, nozzles, drones, PPE, those sorts of things that we were able to help our partners with. And then in April, when I visited Chile, I was able to meet with the Bomberos and the CONAF, which are the firefighters and the group that fought for an entire month on what other assistance they needed. And it was really interagency. How do you bring the interagency to bear, which is what we do as part of our apparatus here in the United States. So how do we share how we do it? And that helps them figure it out in their country, how they do it better. And so, again, those partnerships, figuring out turning a crisis or chaos into an opportunity to be able to take what we already have and we've already experienced to be able to help them through that chaos or that crisis.
So we're out of time, but one last question, leadership question. What, from your perspective, was your greatest accomplishment, and what advice would you give to young people throughout the hemisphere?
Well, I would say I'll go back to what I started with on one of your first questions, and that was to be able to serve in the military, to be able to have a family in the military, to be able to lead America's sons and daughters in combat. At the end of the day, you don't want to have that, but to be able to do that, to train and do all the things that we do in the military and be able to do that, and then be able to lead United States Southern Command. I really couldn't have imagined a different type of career, but to be able to do that successfully, and honored to serve our nation, but then honored to serve the U.S. Southern Command area of responsibility, 31 countries. I see every day how hard they work. I see it in their eyes, how hard they're trying to make a difference. 28 like-minded countries in this hemisphere. And I'll tell you what, whenever you just think you're having a bad day, I think about how hard my partners are working, and what we need to do to double down and do it even better and try even harder. Because we can counter this. It's a call to action, but we can counter this. And I mentioned earlier, Susan, about the opportunity of this region to feed and fuel the world. And I talked about irregular migration in unprecedented numbers. And when you talk to all these migrants, they talk about wanting to come to America for the American dream. But how do we make the American dream the America's dream? We can do it with this region. We can do it with all of you, all of us working together and helping this region to achieve that, because they have the potential.
And the advice you would give to young people in order to achieve this?
Keep your head down, work hard, and contribute to your mission and what your position is or your job at the current time, and be a member of the team to get after the greater good, and be part of team democracy. Be part of team democracy, because democracies can deliver for their people. And in some places, democracy is under attack in our world, and an attack on democracy anywhere is an attack on democracy everywhere. And team democracy, we can do it, and we are doing it, and we need to double down and do it even harder.
So with that, General Richardson, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I so believe in democracy and democratic values, and Latin America has come so far. And so I think what you said at the very end, that democracy, you don't have good democracy one place, you don't have good democracy any place. So we really need strong democracy, strong leadership. So thank you for your leadership. Congratulations on your award.
Thank you, Susan.
And see you
Thank you,
later.
everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for the time today.